for tuning in. For the Looking Back series, I'm Marianne Pleva. This is the 8th show in our series featuring local people who are, I believe, leading extraordinary lives. Today's guest has been leading a double life, winning multiple awards in both music and sailing, and was even fortunate enough to find a wife who shared both passions.
Right.
Those who live by the water or love jazz probably know Ed Birch. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you very much, Marianne. It's a pleasure to be here and to be on your show.
Well, that's very kind of you. And we've got a lot to cover.
Yes.
So I think we're going to get going. We're off to a little bit of a late start here today.
Yeah.
So you said you wouldn't mind me asking you these personal questions.
No,
when
no, go
and
away.
Where?
Go ahead. Any questions you'd like.
Okay. When and where were you born?
Okay, I was born in Essex, which is kind of unique because I was born in a house. I wasn't born in a hospital. Mm-hmm. And so I was born in 1936, and the doctor came to the house and delivered me, and that was it.
That was pretty unusual. That was probably the last of that kind of stuff. And we do have a picture of that house where Ed was born, which is not too far from where you're living now.
Right.
So,
right. Oh, that's a picture of me.
That's not that house, but
yes, it is. It is,
is
the
that
house.
the house.
It's the same house
okay.
I was born in.
Okay.
I'm about 4 years old in that picture.
All right. So
and,
we do have that right picture. Oh,
there's the house the way it looks today.
The way it looks now.
Much different.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right. But the other one is much cuter, with you in
Yeah.
the foreground there. But it's good to see both of those. So, what brought your grandparents? You were born in your grandfather's house. What brought them to Essex?
Well, my grandfather and the family moved up from New York, and he had an opportunity to work at the Centerbrook bit shop. It was then they used to make bits for drilling holes and things like that, and so he had a good job offer, and he had a nice place, and they wanted to move out of the city, I think. So they came up to Essex, and
so there was plenty of opportunity here, I would think. Yeah.
Yes.
And we do have a picture of the Centerbrook, which is now, there it is.
Yes.
Well, now Centerbrook Architects.
Centerbrook Architect
And we
Company
have
now,
another shot with an older building here, so maybe that was an original building.
Pretty much the same building. They kept that building as it was, pretty much, originally. But somewhere I saw a picture of the road with a horse cart going by,
really?
and unpaved road.
Now there's another building which I thought was older.
They had suffered quite a bit of damage after the flood, but they rebuilt it, and rebuilt it pretty much the way it was. Yeah.
I see. And the hurricane of '38. You were.
Oh, and by 1938,
at that point, I guess.
My parents had moved out of the house and had their own apartment on Main Street in Essex. And so my father was working at the Essex Boat Works at that time, and the 1938 hurricane came in, and he was very lucky to be alive, because once he was ready to step on a boat, and it sank right underneath his feet.
Gosh.
And my mother and I went out the next day, and we saw all these boat parts and things littering the backyard, basically. They'd all blown up there. And I remember the hurricane being so bad that we had put towels on the windows, and we couldn't keep the rain out. The rain kept coming right through the windows. So that's the whole force of it.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of people have memories of that, because it was such a shocking thing. And it wasn't, now we could tell when a hurricane is coming a little better, but back then.
Yeah, and of course I was only like 2 years old at that point, and but I still have a vivid memory of trying to stop the rain coming through and going out picking up all the things that had blown off of yachts and everything.
And that was the same time that Katharine Hepburn's, her family home.
Yes, that's right.
Pretty much
that's
destroyed.
Right. She lost the whole house down there. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So where did your dad go to school?
Well, my father went to school, in the beginning in New York, and then when they moved up here, he was ready to go to high school, and so he went to Pratt High School, and he only went for a couple years In those days, you know, if you got to 8th grade, they had an 8th grade graduation that was pretty serious. And so he made it to 2 years of high school at Pratt. And I was lucky to go to Pratt High School myself much later on, only for a couple of years, and then we went to regional school.
Right.
But after he left high school, he got a job in Florida, working on Charles Morgan's yacht. And they had a big cruise and had a lot of servants and deckhands and so forth there.
Wow.
Yes.
So he always had that love of sailing as well, right? Now, when you were growing up, I guess Essex was a lot different, but where did you live when you were growing up?
Well, in the same house we were in the 1938 hurricane, we lived on Main Street, Essex. And there's a picture of the house. The Nicholsons Neil Nicholson, who passed away, had that house, and I still think they have it. But I can remember riding my little wagon up and down the street and so forth, and sitting on the front steps there. And Essex was a fun place to live as a child.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said,
who would believe that picture?
I do love that picture.
That was at Hayden's house across the street, and that's Nellie the cow. And every day Ken Hayden would bring the cow across the street to my house, or to our house where we lived, and down the field behind our house. And I would get to lead the cow back. But who would expect to see a cow on Main Street, Essex, nowadays?
That's true. It would be kind of shocking, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And the other thing that surprised me was the Nichols house, which you lived in, which is so beautiful, like all of them on Main Street, was like an apartment house.
That's right. We rented the downstairs apartment, and then there was another person that rented the upstairs apartment. And at that point in time, there were a lot of apartment houses up and down Main Street and everywhere, because people at that point didn't buy houses that much. You know, a lot of people, just after the Depression and everything, you know, were strapped for money. So
correct. And then you know, a lot of the hubbub was moving to Ivoryton too, I guess.
Yeah.
With the ivory trade and
getting away from the water.
Getting away from the water.
People wanted to get away from the water in those days. You know, that's
maybe
where
just
the
using
riffraff
a little,
lived.
Using a little water power instead.
It's now just the opposite. You know, you pay extra taxes now if you have any kind of a water view or anything.
Right. And then in the 1950s, you lived in a different house.
Yes, in the 1950s, my parents were still renting. My father wanted to buy a house in the worst way, but my mother wouldn't let him. So we moved over to Mack Lane, and we were living in George Mack's house over there. And I don't think you have, there's a picture of Mack Lane.
Okay, now how does that look?
Well, that looks a lot different than when we lived there, that's for sure.
I think it probably grew a little bit.
There was a boatyard right next door to us.
See a peek.
And I think that's Frank Flory's house now. Yeah, and it was a fun place to live. And Warner Lord and the Lords all lived next door. And he used to have a Lord's store. I think he was a town official of some sort, maybe mayor, I don't know. But it was another great place to live as a child.
Right, plenty of water to practice your skill, right? Your craft. Plenty of water to practice sailing.
Oh yes, we had dock access right there, and I had my own little sailboat out there sailing.
Now, where was the Lord's store?
Lord's store is where I think is it Alden's men's shop is now on Main Street. That used to be Lord's store for years, and I worked there as a teenager, and as a little kid when I lived on Main Street, I used to come up and they had a penny candy store, and I would look at the penny candy, and also the very attractive young lady selling the candy turned out to be Betty Doyle, and the Doyle family, and so it was a lot of fun living on Main Street and living also on Mack Lane. Yeah.
So do you think, let's see, because you were an only child, that you were closer to your dad because you certainly had a very fond relationship.
Yes. I think my mother decided after one child that was enough. She didn't want to go through that again. But my father and I were very close because of the sailing. And my mother and I, in fact, there's a picture of me when I was 5 years old on our family catboat. My father had this beautiful catboat. It was a racing catboat. And I was 5 years old, and you notice that my father has a hold of my foot.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case.
Very subtle.
Yes, very subtle, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to go anywhere or jump off the boat or anything.
Yeah, you look like you were big enough to do that.
My father was a very competitive person, and we'd be sailing our catboat out there. There weren't any formal races. He'd say, let's see if we can beat that boat next to us, you know.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun with that. That was before the war.
So when did you become, I guess you're always learning. I was going to say a proficient sailor, but obviously you're always getting new skills, right?
You're always learning, and you're also always forgetting now. I'm not the sailor that I used to be in college and so forth.
Right.
But I went to a music school. I had to find a music school, and I wanted to go to the University of Connecticut, but at that point they didn't have much of a music school. So my job was to find a music school that had a sailing team. So I finally found one, and that was Boston University.
Okay.
And that's where I really learned how to sail.
Yes, okay. I just want to talk a little bit more about your growing up and how else you spent your time, because I'm doing that to get this wonderful photo in here of you.
Yeah.
And your wagon. There it is there.
Yeah, oh, there's a picture of me in my wagon. Oh, I love that wagon. That was a red wagon, and I used to drive that up and down Main Street, and I was pretty fast with that wagon.
I think they just did a 100th anniversary of that company. I saw that on the news.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like a week ago.
Wow.
It had a certain name, and I forget it.
I don't know. I don't remember
company.
what the wagon was or who built it. But we had a wonderful neighborhood because the Johnses lived at Dora and the Bloombergs lived up further, and all the kids used to get together and play, and we'd wander up and down the street, you know, and my mother had a whistle she'd blow when dinner was ready, and I would come running. But I walked to school in those days. I walked up to where the Catholic Church is now. They demolished the school. But I used to walk up there every day. I'd walk to school and walk home for lunch even, and practice my trumpet a little bit.
Yeah. And what did the neighbors think of that?
The neighbors wished I didn't practice so much. And they kind of wished I wouldn't play out the window. I used to love to play out the window.
Right. That's pretty good.
And people would be walking by, and they'd say, "What's that?" I'm playing. And now where we live on Novelty Lane, when my daughter comes, she's a professional oboist, she does the same thing. She practices with the windows open, and people go by and say, "Oh, we love the music we heard."
They probably think that she works there.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of friends, but you had a big family too, right? Except you were the only child.
Yes.
But
I was an only child, but my mother had 4 sisters and 2 brothers, and they all had children. And in the old days, well, we used to get together as a family a great deal. That was the entertainment. We didn't go to shows or things like that, or not to the movies too much. And so the family got together every Saturday or Sunday. And there I am with my 2 cousins. Those are the closest cousins to me. And they were like my sisters. And they would come and live with us and spend some time with us because their mother worked and very often had things to do. And all during the war, we saw a lot of each other and did a lot of things together.
Did they also live in Essex?
No, they live in Westbrook.
In Westbrook,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Pretty close
Yeah,
by.
they live in Westbrook. Edith still lives in Westbrook, Edith Riggio. And my other cousins live in Madison and Guilford, so we still get together every so often.
Good, yeah, family is good. So why did your parents wait to buy a home in Essex? You said that people didn't so much buy houses, but
yes,
something to do with your mom?
Yes, my mother wouldn't let my father buy a house. It came to the point where he decided, I guess we're going to stay in Essex, but She wasn't going to stay in Essex. She was from the big city of Westerly, Rhode Island.
Oh, wow.
And she liked the city life. And she said, I'm not going to live in this little Essex town. There's nothing going on
And
here.
there's a cow living on Main Street, right?
With a cow. and now everybody moves to Essex because it's quiet and nice and picturesque,
Yeah.
you know, and so forth. But she finally let him buy a house in their late 60s, and that's where I live now in Malvady Lane.
So what was the condition of that house when you bought your house?
Well, the house was in poor condition when my father bought it. Randy Hale had owned it. And my father fixed it up, and we fixed it up even further. And we put the picket fence up because we would have people coming off their yachts would walk right by our house, and the dogs and cats would go there. We said, hey, we have to do something. So we put the fence up around the property to keep the tourists out.
Oh, I thought we had another house of, oh, maybe we can put it on there.
That's the same house. That's
I know,
our
that's
back
the same
porch.
house, but I had one of that lovely garden shed building. Oh, there it is, okay.
Oh.
Which in the old days.
Yeah, well, that's an outhouse.
Okay.
That was a deluxe outhouse.
It still looks pretty good. It's a very nice shed.
Does. We don't use it for an outhouse, of course, now. But I put my bicycle in our lawn mowing equipment and everything else in that. But that was not in that location. Originally, it was well behind the house, and they had a big hedge in front of it. So, you know, you wouldn't be disturbed by the outhouse being back there.
The boaters.
Yeah.
But then, sadly, your dad was not there very long.
Yes, my father only lived in the house. He was very happy. We were all very happy there. And he only lived there for about a year, and he had a heart attack, and he passed away. So that was very sad. But at least he got his house finally.
What he always wanted.
Yep.
So you said that you always loved music. How did you initially get involved in music?
Well, my father kind of brought me into sailing, and my mother loved to dance and sing. You know, she was kind of a nightclub girl, and so she kind of got me interested in music. And one of the neighbors next door said, every time your son goes by here, he's always singing, he's always whistling. You know, you ought to give him music lessons.
Oh, is that right?
She said, yeah, maybe we should do that. Give him some music lessons. So they did. So I started off on the trumpet, and I'm still playing that today.
So we do have a great photo of your mom and you, and she's playing a banjo, right?
Oh, yeah, there's a picture of us. My mother's playing the little ukulele banjo, and I'm playing my trumpet. I must have been about 10 or 12 at that point. And we're outside posing for that picture because you can see the snow in the background.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. And is that the, what house would that be? Is that the house
on Main Street, I think.
Okay, the Nichols.
Yeah. Yeah. When we moved to Mac Lane, I was a teenager.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, I guess you got involved in music, and then you had this life-changing event. Would you like to talk about that?
That's very sad. Yes, I was doing very, very well, of course, playing the trumpet and so forth. And in elementary school, we were playing a blind man's lead game, and unfortunately, I was running along and I came to a bookshelf, and my hands just went under the shelf. If they'd been 2 inches higher, I would hit the shelf, but I went under the shelf and it hit my teeth and knocked my 2 front teeth out. And so I had a lot of dentistry after that, and they finally put a bridge all the way across. And then when I got in the Army, I was playing first trumpet with the band, and so they put an even better bridge in the Army for me so that I could play. Because every time I started playing, my teeth started bothering me. And so I can't play too long.
Boy, what a terrible thing for a
days
musician.
and months, like a professional musician.
But it was corrected, mostly, right?
Yes.
Mostly corrected. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and I'm not sure, but we're going to go to a public service announcement.
Oh.
And but don't go away. because we're not going anywhere.
Okay.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
A little walk. A big walk is not good.
Oh, I think we're back. That was a quick PSA. So I'm here with Ed Birch, and so
Yeah.
happy to be, and telling us about his career and his music and his sailing. So let's, I wondered though, where did you go to high school? You had a little different experience with high school,
I did
right?
have a different experience in high school because they were building the regional school at that point. So I went to my first 2 years at Pratt, and then my last 2 years at Valley Regional High School, and I think we were the second class to graduate from Valley Regional High School.
Yeah.
But in my sophomore year, we were busing back and forth between the two schools, and we lost a lot of time with all the busing, so I don't think busing is a good idea for education.
Just for the time commitment, because before, I mean, to go to Pratt, which is now Town
just
Hall,
walk there
was
and
easy.
there I'd be.
Right? And sidewalks and all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
I don't think there's
right.
too many sidewalks at Valley Regional.
No, they depend completely on
On
bus
a bus.
transportation there.
Right, right. And I think you talked a little bit about where you first went to college after high school, Boston University. Could
Yes.
you mention that again? You picked that because...
I picked Boston University because they had an excellent music school and a sailing team also. And so I would go and practice my trumpet and go to my classes at the university, and then I would walk down to the community boat center and I'd practice rounding buoys until dinner time.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot at college.
Yes, doing both those things kept you very
Yeah.
busy. How about, did you like Boston after being from the small town of Essex?
Oh, no, I did not like Boston. When I went to audition for Boston University, and take all the exams and entrance exams, I said to my father went up there with me, I said, well, I don't care if I get in here or not, because I don't think I like this place. The music school was in Copley Square at that point, and it was kind of a dirty place, and you'd have somebody come and ask you for $1 or something, or just a quarter at that point.
The regular big
and
city
I didn't know
stuff,
how to handle that,
Yeah.
But by the time I was in my junior year, I had my own apartment, and then I liked it, and that was a lot of fun, and I got used to it after a while, used to city living.
Good, good. You must go and visit there sometimes, right?
I go up there once in a while. Yeah, I've been meaning to go up and join the sailing team. They have an alumni day where all the alumni can go out and sail the boats and race
nice.
again.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll do that next year.
How did you get to join the Army band?
Oh, the Army band. At that point, they were still drafting, I think, for the Korean War. And so you didn't want to be drafted at all. So my good friend Warner Lord said, look, if you go in as a Federal Reserve, then you will not be drafted and you get special treatment. So the first day I was in the Army, they said, okay, all the enlisted people here and all the people going to there, going, and they said, what about me? Well, I was a Federal Reserve and they didn't have any place for me, so I kind of zipped out in between things. But getting into the Army and I did not agree, especially in the basic training where I was learning, how to shoot a gun and everything. I did well at it again, but it was not the life for me. So then from basic training, I went to the Army Band School, and I would be up there playing my trumpet and watching all the troops march by in the rain and the mud, and that's a picture of my uniform. I wore that uniform every day pretty much. We had our own private mess hall and so forth, but that's me playing for the town Memorial Day parade. I play taps at all the different cemeteries, and I think Bill Cook took that picture actually
really?
For me.
Who's here with us today? Wow.
I still do that and feel that that's an important thing to do.
So you've done that for many years, all the time you were here, right?
Right, since I started playing trumpet. I started playing trumpet when I got to that level when I was about 10 years old. And at 10 years old, it was kind of a traumatic experience to play taps at the town parade, because what they do, they fire the guns off, you know, and they fire 3 shots, bang, 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 and each time my stomach would go round and round, and by the time I get my trumpet up,
you're a little upset.
I would have a lot of trouble playing.
Probably wasn't too good for the ears either.
No, I didn't mind that.
Okay.
And one time I forgot about that, and I had my trumpet up next to my lips, and I fired the gun, bang, on this, and I hit my lip, you know, and that wasn't too good either.
I think there's also special services.
That's a picture of me when I was in the Army. In special, I got drafted. I was in headquarters band. I was playing a lead cornet with a band, which you saw the regular green uniform.
Right.
But then I got drafted into special services, into the All-Army show. And that's the way we looked. That was our show uniform. And we went touring the all over the Second Army area and then some. And at that point, I was living the life of a professional musician. The other 2 guys that were with me, in fact, maybe that's one of the shows. Maybe that's the band, right. There were 3 of us playing trumpet together. I had a special routine that we did. And the lead trumpet player in the middle, he went to Las Vegas to play shows. And Bill on the other side, he went to New York to do recording work in the studios in New York. And then the guy on the left was me, and I went to be a music teacher. And the other 2 guys said, "What? You're going to become a music teacher? What kind of life is that?" But that's the kind of life that I chose. Because I did not like the professional musician life, living out of a suitcase and going from hotel room to hotel room. And my daughter is a professional musician now, and so is her husband, and they travel all over the world. They go all over.
But they go together. They go together?
They don't go together necessarily, or they do go together, but right now my son-in-law is going up to Maine to do a concert up there, and Karen has played with the Springfield Symphony, the Hartford Symphony, and played with the New York symphonies down there, some of the shows down there. And she had a wonderful job in Sarasota playing with that symphony orchestra full time. But then she left that job to come up with her husband and have a baby. I said, I don't know if that's a good choice or not.
But anyway, well, you told her it was, right?
Yeah.
You told her it was a good choice.
Yes, I did. I did finally tell her, yes, you have to have a child. That's part of living. It's an important part of living, having a family.
Back to your education, then after the service, you went back for your master's. And,
yes.
And so why did you select UConn? You selected UConn, right?
Well, the reason I selected UConn is because in order to teach in the state of Connecticut, you have to have a lot of extra courses that I hadn't had at Boston University. At Boston, I had many music courses, but I didn't have general courses like French. I had to take some French, and I took a very interesting class at UConn, which is called geology, and I enjoyed that very much. And so I went there for graduate work because you had to be qualified to teach in the state.
Okay.
And I also met my wife there.
Oh, I was gonna, yeah. That was the other important thing.
Yeah. Oh, there's a picture of me
there's your graduation.
graduating with my trumpet, and and so forth. I
Okay.
played in the band for graduation, of course.
Yeah. And then we have there's a picture of, I think that's you. It's kind of small, but I think that's you and Marcia
Yeah,
sailing.
that's my wife and I sailing together. When I met her at the University of Connecticut doing graduate work, one of our first dates, I said, how well do you swim, Marcia? And she said, what? I thought we were going to the movies. I said, yes, we are, but how well do you swim? She said, I swim pretty good. Turned out she swims like a fish, and she could swim better than I could. And then she found out why I was asking, because we went sailing, she married a sailor and so forth. And she became the best crew I ever had. She's still the best, and she learned to navigate the boat when we had bigger boats, when we graduated to bigger cruising boats. And she did everything. She has her own sailing trophies too.
Okay, we're going to get to all your trophies soon, and we are getting a little, we got to stay on schedule, because
Yeah, okay.
You said life in Essex has changed more socially than physically? Would you
Yeah,
talk about that?
Main Street doesn't look too much different. I think they try to keep it looking the same way. The steamboat dock, even though it's nice, a museum now, it still looks like the steamboat dock, and it's very nice there. And it was the upper deck at one point, and we still have the docks and the boats out there. But socially, I think there's a much higher class of people living in Essex now than there was when I was a little kid growing up. That's for sure.
Okay. Then how did you become the director of the school band?
Well, when I graduated from UConn with a master's degree, I went to the highest paying job, that I could find, and that was in Bloomfield at the time, which was an all-American city at that time. And they had a good salary schedule, and you just apply for a job. And I had it was amazing. When I came out of college, and Marcia too, we had job offers, 3 or 4 job offers in our field. And now kids coming out of college, they're lucky if they can get a job, let alone in their field.
So your girls were born while you were in Bloomfield?
Yes.
And I think we
Yes,
have
they were. Yeah.
family. There we go.
Oh, there's
Nice
the whole family together,
huh?
right? Right. And our newest rival, Karen's holding the baby, Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
And Kathy's holding the biggest baby, the dog.
Uh-huh.
We have a pug dog. They have one.
Yeah.
And we're all going out to the Cape next week. My daughter's rented a house out there, and we do a lot of family vacations to Disney World and other places.
And okay, when Marcia was in Bloomfield, is that where she learned to play the organ?
Yes, she learned to play the organ in Bloomfield. She has always been a pianist, but she decided she'd like to learn the organ. And so she started taking lessons in Bloomfield. And then when we moved down here, she became the organist at the Iverton Congregational Church. And then she became the organist at the Essex Congregational Church. And that's a picture of her playing her 65th birthday at the Essex Congregational Church. And you can see with manuals, and playing the organ is very difficult.
Okay. What did it feel like to come back to your house in, wasn't your childhood home, but on Novelty Lane when you came back?
Yes.
When you were retired? I mean,
Well, when I retired, the state will send your retirement check anywhere you want. And we have friends in Florida and out in the West Coast and so forth. And I said, Marcia, how does Spain sound? They'll send it to Spain too, So we thought about all the different places we'd like to live. And we came back to Essex, because Essex is a pretty nice place to live. And we've been very happy there.
And I think we have a picture of you, not you, but your house.
That's my favorite, best all boat. That's a Bugler's Holiday with my friend Tony Pereira, and Marcia is wearing the red by the window of the boat, and that's me steering the boat. And we won just about everything. In fact, we won this trophy, this is for the entire season of the East Coast.
Okay.
In our area.
All right. Well, let's talk about your trophies, because sailing was your hobby, music was your life.
Yeah.
Would you like to have had it reversed?
Well, I had a couple opportunities to reverse my career and to go into business and so forth, but I liked staying with music, and teaching music was a very good lifestyle, I think you'd say. I mean, I would have the summers off to sail if I wanted to, but most of the time we'd go back to college to get more courses. And so I decided I'd just stay with music. And
Okay. We have a photo of some of the awards you've won. Now, they're not all of them, but they're also in the same room as Marcia's organ, right? This is
yes,
your
yes.
trophy music room.
Yes, there's some of the
And
trophies I have.
I understand you have some hidden away, packed away in your
Yes,
basement,
I have
maybe.
trophies packed away in boxes. But the interesting thing about all those trophies is that every one of them is a lifestyle commitment. I mean,
And these that
since you're showing them, I'll show
Yeah.
this one. This trophy took months to win. Okay, and this trophy is a very important trophy. It's a Harry Hall International 14 trophy, and that was sailed in International 14s, which was the almost Olympic class boat of the time. However, the biggest trophy I have is this one, which is a music trophy. And I got that when you saw that me with a tuxedo on, and when I was in the All Army show.
Wow, you've had that a while, huh?
Yeah, and so that's the biggest trophy I have, in spite of all the sailing trophies I have.
Lots of trophies. Let's see. The other thing is, what are you involved in now? What are you involved in now?
Well, I'm still sailing. I don't know how much longer I can still do it. But I'm still sailing and still winning trophies once in a while. Not as many firsts anymore. I'm lucky to get a second or third nowadays.
Right. We have some photos of you with some of your groups that you. There
But
you
I'm
are.
still actively involved with the music too. That's our Essex Corinthian Jazz Band, and Leslie Strauss in the middle.
Right.
And
Judge Budney, who also
Judge
did a
Budney,
show
he was
here.
on your show,
Yeah.
right? He's a character. And we play at different places, and we play at Bill's Seafood in the wintertime, and then at the Essex Corinthian Yacht Club in the summertime.
And there's another group. A totally.
And then we have
different
some
group.
breakaway bands. That's a picture of one of the breakaway bands, the Occasional Jazz Quintet, and Scott Conrad runs that. And we have a vocalist who does a tremendous job, and that's me with a Hawaiian shirt on. That was a job we were playing over in New London for the town of Groton, an outside concert.
And you're very active with your church too. I think. Do you sing at the church
Yes.
or?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I go
okay.
to St. John's
So
Church.
there's that beautiful building.
And not only am I active in that church, but I've been active in all my churches. Both Marcia and I like going to church. And I was in the church choir in Bloomfield, and then came down here, and I sang with her choir once in a while. And so it's an important part of our lives.
And you talked, getting back to education, about the education system, how it was then, how it was now.
Oh,
And
right.
did you-
I've gone in, I also play chess. So I was in at the Essex Elementary School teaching chess along with Paul Marden and I. And so I got a first-hand look at the Essex Elementary School, and it's just amazing. They have, computers in every room, and they even have 3D printers. Well, when I went to elementary school, it was like a one-room schoolhouse, and all the kids were all lumped together, regardless of their ability. We had the smart kids with the dumb kids, and so forth. We're all one big happy family. We're not so happy.
That's very different now. And you mentioned your one daughter that's a musician, and your other daughter, where does she work?
She works for the state of Connecticut. She's a a personnel manager for the prisons of the state of Connecticut. So I said, Kathy, you've got a secure job. You're not going to be out of a job. I think they're going to have prisons for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sadly.
Yes.
So I know that I've asked if you'll play, and you're going to do that in just a minute, but I have one last question. How did Novelty Lane get its name?
Oh, Novelty Lane. They have a map over at the River Museum, if you go over and take a look at that sometime. And I have one, that's the one on my wall. And the lane came down to the novelty factory down at the end. And they actually built toys and novelties and wooden things, and that's how it got its name, because that's the novelty factory, and the boats would come in and pick up things and take them out. And later on, it became an oil deposit, and so we don't have a picture of that or anything.
No, but it's just fascinating to see how many buildings are still left when you look at the bird's eye view.
Yes.
And that building where the novelties were made were so big. So they must have made a lot of them.
Yes,
right?
Well, it's now the Essex Yacht Club. So that's the same property as the Essex Yacht Club has now.
All righty. Okay, so we're going to, we're getting close to the end of the show, and I want you to play your cornet.
Oh, okay.
So are you going to do that for us now?
All right, I'll try. I'll warn you that it's difficult to play cold. Usually musicians warm up a little bit, but I'm going to try to play cold.
Okay.
And I'm going to play a piece that was an old traditional funeral piece, Just a Closer Walk with Thee. And what they would do is go down and play softly, or not really softly, but slowly on the way down. And then on the way back, they would jazz it up. And that's what became the Dixieland music that we have now.
Okay.
So I'll try to play both versions if I can.
Okay, thank you. That was great. How are we doing on time? Do we have time for another song, or are we out of time?
I don't know.
One more song?
You want another song?
Maybe a short song.
All right, I'll try to make it short. This is a song called Ain't She Sweet? Look at her walking down the street. I don't know if you know that or not.
I think I do. Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of our program.
Well, thank you very much, Marianne, for having me here. I enjoyed it.
I hope that everyone who's watching has enjoyed. I want to thank our crew today, Bill Cook, Al Manikovich, Ken Butterworth, and Kobe O'Connell. And a special thanks to you, Ed Birch, because of course without you we couldn't do the show. So for those of you who are watching, if you'd like to be on the show or host this program, please contact me at Contezza at CONTZA @gmail.com. For the Looking Back series, I'm Marianne Pleva. And watch the graphics that will come up and show you how to watch this show, even if it's not on the night you want to watch it. So thanks for joining us. And oh, by the way, thanks again for watching.